Harihi Om. Om Gajananam Bhudaganadisepidam Kavittajambho Balasaravakshisam Umasudam Soka Vinashakaranam Namami Vikneshwara Padapangajam. Om Shreem Hreem Kleem Ganeshwaraya Brahmaswarubhaya Charave Sarvasiddhi Pradeshaya Vikneshaya Namo Namaha Vam Gajananam Mahakayam Vignarajam Vinayakam Vishvesham Vishvashaksham Ganeshayam Namo Namaha Om Sahanao Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Garavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Gurut Brahma Gurut Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarva Lokhanam Visaje Bavaroginaha Nadaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurthaye Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Sarveshwararpanamastu. Harihi Om. Om Tat Sat. And welcome to week 14th of the journey into the wisdom of the Upanishads. This is the last Upanishad that I'm covering in this series, or in this session entitled Wisdom of the Upanishads. But of course, the wisdom is unending, as is the Upanishads. So we'll see what January 2022 brings into the fore as far as future plans are concerned, right? But today we move on to Brahmanubava Upanishad, right? Brahmanubava Upanishad. There's two key words here, Brahma and Anubhava, right? So this particular Upanishad tells you the insides of how to gain oneness with the Supreme Brahman. Hence, Brahmana Anubhava. Brahmanubhava, right? That's what it means. So, from the records of what is available today, in terms of tracing back to its advent, I would say, because there are different, and I look at the different Upanishads before coming to this conclusion. You're looking at probably around the 3rd century CE when this Brahmanubava Upanishad was written, right? It is not a significant Upanishad like the ones that we've looked at called Mukhya Upanishad, right? This is less significant, so you can put it in the Amukhya category of Upanishads. But the Veda that it relates to is Yajur-veda, right? And Yajur-veda, as you know, it's got a Shukla edition and a Krishna edition. Shukla bright, Krishna dark. So Brahmanubava Upanishad relates to the Krishna Yajur-veda. Now, in terms of its central focus or its philosophy, in one word, it's renunciation, right? And of course, the central theme that flows across this Upanishad is it tends to discuss renunciation and the pure pursuit of knowledge, right? Of course, from a Bhagavad Gita perspective, this is Jnana Yoga, Jnana Yoga. So it talks about the pure pursuit of knowledge and the results of renunciation, or the consequences that you beget as a result of engaging in this renunciation. Now, renunciation here, I just want to make it clear to all of you, it's not giving up something, right? From a physical perspective. Spiritual renunciation is something that you give up in your thought process that has to show itself through your speech process and collectively has to manifest as the action process. So thoughts, words, and deeds. Renunciation must vibrate in all 3 levels. Otherwise, it is not spiritual renunciation and you will not get far, right? I mean, if you give up food, say, I'm renouncing food, then perhaps what will happen is you might lose some weight. So there's a physical consequence that you beget, but nothing spiritual happens, right? But when all 3, right? Remember, I've always spoken about this Traikarana Suddhi, right? And that happens at that level, then you are talking about renunciation. And that coupled with the Jnana Kanda, right? Wisdom or knowledge, together can give you the inroad or the inside or the insight towards Brahman, right? And I said to you, he is not outside, or she is not outside, or it is not outside. It is verily within you. Therefore, the more deeper you go, the better the journey becomes for you in terms of your own experience of that, spiritual exploration. Now, it is said that Pippalada Maharishi is the author of this particular Upanishad. Pippalada Maharishi, right? This Upanishad is basically a conversation between two people. One is the author, right? Maharishi, Pippalada Rishi. And the other is Shaunaka, right? Shaunaka, I have spoken about him in several places. Shaunaka Mahashala is called, right? Now, what is peculiar about this Upanishad is it is notable for rejecting all forms of rituals. It is notable for rejecting all types of external religious observations. And it is extremely notable for one thing, declaring the highest state of man as a complete being, and that can only be achieved by pure knowledge. That is the focus of this Upanishad. That's why I chose to do it as a finishing Upanishad. And although we've only covered about 13 or 14 of them, as 108 Mukhya Upanishads, right? Maybe later, we don't know. Man proposes and God disposes, but I prefer to say it as man plans and God decides, right? A couple of well-intending friends actually corrected me. So you always say man plans, God disposes. No, it's man proposes. I said, what is the difference between proposing something and planning something? It's the same thing, right? You like white tea, I like black tea. Tea is the essential ingredient. You make it white, I like it black. Don't fault the tea. Look at your own likes and dislikes. I'll come back to that later, yeah, in a few moments when I talk about how to move away. So this Upanishad is fantastic because it says all that you've looked at is virtually useless if you still remain in the same thought process, in the same speech process, and in the same deed process. Unless you move away from this Dvaitam and tack onto the path of Advaitam, then you are not progressing at all. No progress is made. You have to join the path of Advaitam. So this verily focuses on Advaitam, and it gives you the secret to Advaitam, that is knowledge. Knowledge not in a circular sense, but knowledge in a, always say Atma Vidya. Atma Vidya. If you are seeking the Paramatman as a Jivatma, you need the Vidya. What sort of Vidya? Atma Vidya, so that the Jivatma can realize the Paramatma. And when the merge becomes one, when the union is there, there is no difference. There is no distinction. So this Upanishad actually has about 8 or 9 themes that it focuses on. And I'm going to take each one of them so that, it is simplified and comprehensive, all those of you who have tuned in this afternoon or evening, as it may be in your country, or night, or in the US, it's still early morning. So the first theme it looks at is the non-duality of all the Upanishads. It tells you a single path, right? Maybe it tells you the path in different ways, but the path is one, so non-duality there. Then it tells you how to describe Brahman, right? And it says it gives you 5 attributes. So the second one describes Brahman. The third one talks about your desire, your attachment, your ego, right? And the fourth one says if you get rid of this, then you can see your Atma, which is ever full, ever pure, and self-luminous. Self-luminous, but you can't see because of the dark veil of ignorance or Maya. So the first thing is to remove this veil of ignorance and Maya so you can see the illumination of the self through yourself. When the you, but in a spiritual sense, the I is deleted, then only the self remains. The fifth theme is quite important because it's saying Brahman can only be attained through the process of negation of senses. negation of senses, right? How to negate your sense and promote, right? Advaitam. Only the negation of senses can promote the rise of Advaitam, right? And then it talks about God being present everywhere, right? Omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresence. Sarvabhutasya sthitaha. Like I always say, the Purusha Shuktam starts with that saying, one with 1,000 limbs, 1,000 eyes. Sahasra Sirisha Purushaha, Sahasrakshat Sahasrabhat, Sabomim Vishwatho Vitva, Ashtadiktashranghulam, Purusha Yeveda Sarvam, Yat Bhudam Yat Chabhavyam. It goes on to say, everywhere, right? Then it tells you how to discover divinity. It's very important. Do you need the eye of wisdom, or do you need some other eye to discover and attach yourself to that divinity? Then it tells you what stops you from seeing the thing right. It talks about grief and joy and grief, and then it talks about vice and virtue, right? The two sides. And these are verily the byproducts of the mind. Byproducts of the mind. It is just amazing, right? It is just amazing to see such high-level thoughts, lofty ideals, right? Lofty thoughts, superbly precise in spiritual language that tells man exactly, the mathematical formula, the mathematical precision you can find in these Upanishads. That's why the wisdom is so high, right? Tells you what you should do to control and tame the mind. But the last theme that is, to me, appearing in this Brahmanubava Upanishad is overcoming your illusions. How do you do that? Right? The beauty of the Upanishads is it does not just ask you the question, but it also gives you the methodology to realize the answer within. But that methodology is a practical requirement. The best recipes are useless if you don't attempt it. Of course, you attempt, you'll make mistakes, but then you keep doing it. You'll hit it at some point and it'll be perfect. Maybe it will even be better than the original recipe's author. But you should try. As many times as you try, the product will then speak for itself in that way. So let me take the first theme first, where I say the Upanishads equals non-duality. So if you are following the teachings of the Upanishads, if you've been listening to me for the last 14 weeks, then you should have begun your journey at some point, right? From duality, Dvaitam, to non-duality, Advaitam. Because if you look at all the Shrutis and the Smritis, right, they all declare, Ekameva Advaityam Brahmaha. That means Brahman is only one without a second. Ekameva Advitiyam Brahmaha. Right? That is to say, there is nothing besides Brahman. Under all conditions, at all times, everywhere, in everything, Brahman, Ekameva. He is alone. In the beginning, he is there. In the middle, he is there. The end is there. Chandogya Upanishad said that. Mandukya Upanishad describes him as, Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad also describes him as something to move you from the state of one level of consciousness to another level of consciousness, right? Shantam, Shivam, Advaitam. Shantam is peace. Shivam is auspiciousness. And of course, Advaitam is non-duality. So all the Upanishads are saying the same thing in different ways, right? Krishna told Arjuna what in Bhagavad Gita? He said, Ayamatma Gudakesha Sarvabhudasya Sthitaha Aham Adischa Madhyancha Antameva Yacha. Antameva cha. He's telling, hey, Arjuna, don't look at this as something temporary, right? Don't look at me as who I am, telling you as who you are. Look at me as the Paramatman and think of yourself as the Jivatma, the Supreme Atma talking to the lower level of the Atma. Because I am Atma Gudakesha, I am that very Atma that is in you, that is talking to you, that is around you. Sarva Bhudasya Sthitaha, I am all around. Aham, me. Adischa, in the beginning. Madhyancha, in the middle. Antamevacha, the end. So what goes around and comes around is verily an opportunity for you, oh Muda Arjuna. Listen, do this, do what I tell you, and you will cut the binding nature of the cycle of birth and death. Then you can join me, and that's it. Because I know all my births. You don't realize, right? So you have to get evolved. And of course, with every birth, you evolve depending on your karmas, right? And what you see is processed by what you think. And what you think is determined by what you like and what you don't like. So the sight and the vision verily, attaches itself to your sense of definition based on your perception, which is then made into a conception. That is your concept. That is why two people looking at the same thing may say different things. Isn't it? That is because everything that is seen by the visual eyes is the product of the seer's likes and dislikes. Very easy, isn't it? If you look at something that looks like a rope at night, it might look like a snake which is coiled up. But when you bring in the night, when you bring in the light, the snake disappears and only the rope remains. That is the clarity that you need, When the world is examined in this light of knowledge, just like, the light that is brought into the dark, now you can see that is not a snake, it's just a rope. This is called Brahmajnana, right? That illusory picture is one attracted and two dispelled. So what remains? Non-duality, right? It could be a rope, it could be a snake. I don't know which it is. But in this darkness, in this ignorance, I think it is the snake. When the light of wisdom comes, I can see that is not a snake, it is a rope. In the same way, in the path of spirituality, when Brahmajnana comes, when you become a Brahmajnani, you can see the darkness. Just like you can distinguish between a rope and a snake, you can distinguish between Dvaitam and Advaitam. Everything is processed by the mind, what you see, what you hear, what you speak, what you taste, what you say, what you smell, Because you are the enjoyer of your own processing of that information. If you like it, you'll say very tasty. If you don't like it, you will say, no, it's rubbish. If you like hearing something, basically, people talking about you in very good way, you'll say, very good, man, very good, very good. If somebody is criticizing you, even though it is constructive criticism, you'll say that man is a bad man, right? It must be a situation, when the different stage that you are, when you are both awake. And when I spoke to you about the Mandukya Upanishad, I spoke to you about the 3 levels of Om, meditation, A-U-M. But I said to you, the 4th stage is what we should all aim to hit, right? Now, when you are going to sleep and you're entering the stages of sleep, the external world is still there. Even in your dream stage, the external world is still present because when you wake up, you can recollect your dreams, correct? But when you go to the deep sleep stage, the world is absent. It's just you floating there. What I'm saying is this is only the 3rd stage, right? The chitta, the consciousness stage. Then you should latch onto the 4th stage, which is Turiya, the Bindu in Om, that spot. That is the eternal endlessness where there is no secondlessness, right? Contemplation. That Turiya is that state where you are one without a second. That means that is Brahman in completion, right? So that's the first theme where it talks about non-duality. Right? Obviously, I'm simplifying everything, right, within the time that we have. The second theme that it looked at is it describes Brahman, right? And it gives Brahman 5 attributes: being, consciousness, bliss, fullness, and eternity. It gives him 5 attributes, 5 characteristics, 5 qualities. Being, Sat, the truth. Consciousness, Chitta. Bliss, Ananda. Fullness, Paripuranaha. And eternity is Nitya, as opposed to Anitya. So Brahman is described in 5 qualities: Sat, Chit, Ananta, Paripuranaha, Nitya. 5. When you attempt to understand these 5 qualities, then you are trying to penetrate that veil that blocks the Atma with the Brahmatma. Right? So let me take these 5 things and then tell you how to look at it. First thing is Sat. Sat means being. So always have the realization that you are actually God, but you are trying to reach that state where you can completely accept you are God. See, at this stage, people can say, but I'm God. Okay, but that's just a verbal acceptance. Now I'm talking about the Atmic acceptance that you are verily God. At that level, when you can accept, at the Atma level, then you have touched the first quality of being Brahman. Second is Chit. Chit is what? Consciousness. So at all times, you must be conscious of the fact. That requires you at all times to have your thought, your words, and your actions completely in and under control. Isn't it? You're completely conscious at all times. You see, you have accepted the fact of your being as Brahma, the final. The second characteristic is the Chitta. You have to be constantly conscious, consistently conscious of this fact. Because then you have touched the second quality that will take you to the third quality. Once you have the first 1 and 2, then you are completely in a state of Ananda. Ananda, complete bliss. Anandamai Bhagavan, E Premamai Bhagavan, Om Bhagavan, Sai Bhagavan, Anandamai Bhagavan. Ananda, completely, always. Then there is no difference between you and Buddha, because Buddha was in that state. A complete turnaround, right? Buddha. Pendulum is completely swung, right? From Manusha to Purusha. So you can, once you hit the stage of Sat, Chit, and Ananda, you're in that complete state of vibration where you are always in the state of bliss. Pain is the same. Joy is the same. Grief is the same. Happiness is the same. Well, you're beyond this already now. So these things don't make a difference to you because you are vibrating at that level of bliss. That means you have reached that Brahman stage. Of course, at that stage, you are full. That's the 4th characteristic, Paripuranaha. Because there is no, Brahman is one with Ekameva, Advityam. Right? And of course, at that level of the 4th stage of Paripuranaha, you are eternal, Nitya. When you understand these 5 qualities and you are able to penetrate and procure them and merge with them, then you have become a being who will be unaffected by time. Will be unaffected by time, right? Because that consciousness, remember I said self-luminous, it's completely luminous now. So like Ramana Maharishi, for example, you will get that complete tejas that is coming out of your face, that is coming out of your Ajna Chakra, right? That is behind you. That is fullness. That is fullness. That is eternity. The world then becomes something that is just seen or heard or felt or experienced. But you see, the problem is we are all so entrenched in that experience that we do not want to leave that experience and get out of it and look at it as a mere experience and then say, so that is the Bhuloka Janma. That is the life on earth. No, we get so enthralled and caught up in the vicissitudes of the moral dilemmas that, come abound as a result of this human birth. And we think, oh my God, I can't beat this. This is attachment. Attachment. Because of this attachment, you forget your true self. Your true self. So there is a clear division between yourself and your true self. So what is the word in the middle between yourself and your true self? It is the word true. That is Sat. That is why it's the first quality that defines Brahman. Get fixed on that. How do you get fixed on that? I told you in the Mandukya Upanishad. Meditate on the Om. Om iti ek aksharam. Brahma dvayakshare. Focus on that. Because when the fog of ignorance vanishes, the brilliance of the Atma will shine forth. Until the fog is there, it will cover that brilliance. You understand? That, see, like this, you can't see clearly. But when you remove that veil of ignorance, that fog of ignorance, what remains is clarity of vision. Clarity of inward vision, not outward vision. So what you will see is the actual sight, not the mirage that you see in the desert sands. It takes away that. Third theme, give up desire, attachment, and ego. Because that's what the mind will do. That is the job of the mind, right? If you take a car, for example, right? The car has got so many parts to make it work, right? The steering does only one thing, turn left, turn right. The steering cannot do anything else. Likewise, the tires only do one thing, right? They either go back or they go front. They cannot do anything else. In the same way, the mind is your quality controller. It will throw things in front of you, whether it is by way of thoughts. It will throw things in front of you, whether it is by words, yours or others, and it will definitely throw things in front of you by way of actions, yours or another. Your job is to ensure that you control your thoughts, control your speech, and develop your actions, evolve, ethically. That's all. If you want knowledge, the Brahmanubava Upanishad is telling, if you want to experience Brahma, very easy, give up desire. What did Vivekananda say? Desire, D-E-S-I-R-E, desire your desires. The moment you see the crocodile of desire floating, beat it. Beat it with what? Beat it with intelligence. What do you need in order to exercise your intelligence? You need wisdom. How do you develop wisdom? You need viveka, discrimination. All these I've spoken to you before, right? This I'm just glossing over whatever I've said, right? It is the same mind that binds you, and it is the same mind that sets you free. So what are you choosing? Are you choosing to be bound, or are you choosing to be set free? Who can decide that? You. Who should decide that? You. Can anybody else influence in that? No. So you have to ask yourself that question. If you follow the world of desires feverishly, then you will only get pleasure. And of course, pleasure has its own consequences in it, because you're developing the sense. When you develop the sense, you become senseless. When you become senseless, you become mindless. When you become mindless, you are caught in this punarjanmaha. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam, yah samsare bahutustare kripayapare pahi murare. Whose choice is that? Yours. Then why do you blame God for everything? There is no one person in the entire universe that is more innocent than God. Right? And I say that not just as a person, not just as a pandit, not just as an acharya, not just as anyone, but I say that from a legal perspective, right? As a barrister and as a professor of law, he stands accused of every crime that is committed by man. My question to you is, does God respond to all the accusations? No. You accuse him, and then you go to the same temple, you give him gifts of whatever, tray of fruits, some money in the hundi, right? Some gifts to the priest, box of laddu perhaps, when your mood is good. So you give God when you want to give, and then you blame God all the time when you want to. But does God respond to all of it? No. Because who is your God? Your mind is your God. Two sides. Just like the Yajur-veda has Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha, right? Just like the month has got 14 days of brightness, right? From Paurnami up to Paurnami. And then from Paurnami down to Amavasya, darkness. Your mind has also got the same quality. Now, it's your choice whether you want to make it Shukla or Krishna, bright or dark. Entirely your choice. Choice in the way you think, choice in the way you speak, and choice in the way you act. What do you do? So very easily, this Upanishad is saying, you want to experience Brahmanubava? You want that Anubhav, that experience? Easy. Give up desire, ego, attachment, finish. I've said many times, what did Shankara say in Bhajagovindam? Hey Muda, Jahihi Dhanagama Trishnam, Guru Sat Buddhim Manasivi Trishnam, Yella Bashe Nija Karmo Phatam, Vittam Thena Vinodaya Chittam. All this is telling you the same thing. It is one song sang in a multitude of languages. The message is central and singular. Choice of acceptance, yours and yours only. Say your name is Raja, okay, for example, Raja, okay, and you are 45 years old. And for 45 years old, since the day you were born and given that name, Raja, you've been known. Raja is like this, Raja is like that, Raja is good, Raja is whatever case may be, right? Assuming today you change your name to something else. Say you change your name to Krishna, for example, right? So now your name is Krishna. But do you become Krishna just by putting a name? But you are still Raja. Because you will continue to do the things that Raja has done. You will continue to do everything in the same way. Only your name is different. What I'm saying is that is the essential difference between yourself and your true self. Because you see, your true self never changes. Things around you may change. Things about you may change. Opinions of others about you might change. But eternally and essentially, you remain the same. Until and unless you go inside, go within, go within, go within. Then it's different. But until then, you're still there. What? You're still there. The Atma is ever full, ever pure, and ever bright. Tejas, self-luminous is what I meant by self-luminous. The Atma is pure, free from attachment. And the Atma is second to none. I said that earlier. Remember when I did Mundaka Upanishad with you, I spoke to you about the two birds. Mundaka Upanishad. Remember two birds sitting on the tree? One was sitting at the lower branch, one was sitting at the higher branch. You know? One was subtle, the other was engaged. The subtle one was observing. The engaged one was just tasting the fruits, moving from one to another, eating this fruit, just jumping, Whereas the one sitting on the perch at the top, the subtle one, was just watching. And I also told you, I remember, I said to you, the tree is your body. They are. The twin birds are you and your true self. Which is the true self? The one that is at the higher branch, watching and observing everything that you're doing. And which is the Jivatma, the one that is jumping from bunch to bunch, thinking that fruit is sweeter, that flower is better, that's what. That is your Jivatma. The bird at the higher is the Paramatma. The individual self experiences joy and grief from all the actions that it engages itself. Whereas the Supreme Atma, the Paramatma within you, just observes. It's subtle. It just sits there, watches and witnesses everything. That is why when you breathe your last, the Atma knows where it's going based on your accumulation of all your karmic endeavors. Right? So it knows where it's heading. And it goes there ready for the next journey. And every single person born has the opportunity to convert that based on what they're doing in this life. Forget about your past life, right? Because that's not going to do anything. Forget about what you're going to become in the future. What are you in this life? That has given you the capacity and the ability to change things in the future. Can't change the past. You can do something, isn't it? And that's what it means, where you go. It's all depending on what you do. What you do depends on what you say, and what you say depends on what you think. So think, say, and do the right thing. Isn't it? Because what is your goal at the end of the day? Jivatma must merge with the Paramatma. And isn't there, so many reasons, so many avenues, so many ways that has been given to you, right? To reach from Akara to Ukara, Ukara to Makara, Makara to Turiya. The Upanishads cannot be rewritten. Of course, people can take it and then give their own interpretation on it, just to make it sound more 21st century, to sit with the current habits and comfort avenues of the modern world. But you cannot hide the truth. That becomes just an interpretation of someone who is unwilling to accept the truth. Very easily it's saying. You talk about the gunas, right? If you make resolutions based on the type of guna that you're experiencing, right? For example, you have Rajasic, Tamasic, and Sattvic, right? So when you're in a Tamasic state of mind, if you make any resolutions, the consequence is nothing but grief. 100% I can tell you that. What happens when you're in a Rajasic thought always, and you make resolutions, or you make decisions? Right? This will plunge you into the world or the flood of worldliness. Rajasic. More sense-oriented, more desire-oriented. It will plunge you there. So what is the Veda saying? What are the Upanishads saying? Always be in a state of Sattva, Sattvic guna. Because only when you're in a Sattvic guna state of mind, your being is Sattvic. Your thoughts will be sattvic, your speech will be sattvic, your actions will be sattvic. So verily, when these things come together, what do they promote? They promote dharma. They promote, the well-being of society. So it's very verily saying, engage always in being in a sattvic situation. But then if you look at the Upanishad, it's saying, give up all three. Come to a state where you have no state. Statelessness. That is where your spirituality will grow. Statelessness. How? The next theme talks about it. Attain Brahma by the process of negation of senses. You have to negate your senses. You're five, isn't it? Panchendriyas. Jnana Indriyas, Karma Indriyas, all five, right? Brahman is beyond measure. He is of immeasurable depth. Right? Therefore, you need to get out of the senses to experience that immeasurable help. You cannot be vibrating at a sense level to grasp the immeasurable depth. You have to get out of it so that you can jump in. If you're already in something, you're not out of it. So how can you get into something else? By in, I mean, you're into sense or desire-based life. Once I said to you, neti, neti, itihi, atman, not this, not this. The true atman is myself. And unless you see that in everything and in everyone, then, you will just be a manusha and you won't see that purusha vibrating in you. Right? You won't recognize that tattvam asi, that thou art, that I am, Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam Brahma. The true wisdom points to me as the Brahman. Prajnanam Brahma. I am Atman Brahma. The true I, through the Atma, can recognize that it is verily Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. That I am the Brahma verily. So all this is telling you, only when you come out of your senses, when you negate your senses, then you can. But if you keep experiencing the joys of karma kanda, the law of action, then how can you catapult yourself to jnana kanda, the law of intelligence? You will always, because you get so much of joy, you continue to do it. I told you about 3-4 weeks back, I told you I have stopped going into my prayer room to pray. Admittedly, the first week was difficult for me because it is something that I have been doing for almost 30-35 years. Every day, every morning, bath, go, bath, go, bath, go, bath, go, bath, go. Right? Sometimes in a wet towel, sitting on the floor, doing this. So the first few days was a bit of an experience for me. And one part of my mind was telling me, what are you doing, stupid fellow? Go and do the prayers. Go and do the puja. Shodasa puja, go and do. 16-stage puja. Go, do. That's the karma kanda dictating me. The jnana kanda is saying, you don't have to do this. Because what you are doing through that, you can get just by your thought process. Sharpen that, sharpen that, sharpen that. Now I can just shut my eye and do any puja. And depends how long I shut, right? The length of the puja. So, which is more better for me? Swami has said once, when you recite the Gayatri mantra, you cannot say it out very loudly. You have to say it just where you can feel your teeth vibrating, and that vibration must hit at the mental level, it must vibrate. Yes, sometimes say it mentally, but very loudly. So the Gayatri mantra can be recited in different levels to procure different consequences. The inner secrets, these are all the inner secrets. Because the jiva is always looking at the mind, and the mind is always looking for fruits. Fruits of what? Fruits of your action. So fruits means must be good fruits, The mind doesn't simply tell you to do this to get bad fruits. What fruits? Fruits of joy, sensual pleasure, good returns, right? You want dignity, you want position, you want recognition, you want award, you want reward. All those fruits is what the mind focuses on. So it will tell you, think like this, speak like this, do like this. You have to break this chain of thoughts, words, and actions. Then you can start negating your senses, right? Then only from Jivatma, you are trying to cross the bridge to become Paramatma. Otherwise you're continuously punarjanmaha, as I said earlier. Krishna said to Arjuna in chapter 2, right? He said, Ragat Dvesha Vyuktastu Vishayan Indrayascharan Atma Vaishyar Vidayatma Prasadam Madhigachati. Exactly what this Upanishad is saying. One whose mind and senses are under control is devoid of attraction or revulsion. Raga Dvesha is devoid of that. He moves around objects and gains the state of tranquility. Indrayascharan, where he subdues. Having gained that tranquility, Atma Vaishyar Vidhyatma, he is suppressing all his sorrows because he's in a state of tranquility. And when he's at that level, prasadam adhigachati, you will get the fruits of your actions very quickly because your intelligence is now vibrating at a very high level and puts the mind control in a state of joy by not doing the things that your mind is telling, but rather it is taking on the dictation of the wisdom. Like I said when I did Bhajagovinda with you, indulge intelligently, not indulge sensually, indulge intelligently. And I've always said, and I'm going to repeat this, as one of my favorite quotes, when matters matter, mind does not matter. When mind matters, matters don't matter. What really matters is that which is beyond mind and matter. Remember that. So indulge intelligently. Why? Because God is everywhere. Just because the room is dark, it doesn't mean that there isn't light. In that room, it is dark. So what do? You turn on the light, burn a candle, light a candle. You have light. Right? Now, Brahman is also seen in the lineage of the gods in Sadguna level. At the Sadguna level, he is known as Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the guru of all teachers. If you go to temples and you see the Navagrahas, right? It is always on, we are facing the Navagrahas. Of course, you will face Shani right there in the middle. So on Shani's right, the second in the middle there, on this side, right? On Shani's right, that means on your left. So the second facing outward is Brihaspati. Right. So as Brihaspati, you pray to Brihaspati or Guru. For what? For intelligence would be. A lot of people say, oh, now your time, you have to pray to Guru every Thursdays, wear yellow, wear yellow sapphire. All that is okay. But you can wear all that and still not do the same things that you should do without wearing them. Isn't it? So it's not enough just wearing yellow on Thursdays or wearing the yellow sapphire or doing the Channa Mala and putting for Brihaspati or Guru. Your buddhi must be sharpened. Then Guru's darshan will be. I always say, don't worry about the Navagraha. Go for the Anugraha. Because when you have the Anugraha, the Navagraha cannot affect you. But no, you have to go every Saturday and go around 9 times. Otherwise, your karma kanda gets spoiled, isn't it? I'm telling you as a result of my own experience. I never say anything until I experience something. Or I do it myself. Swami says, be, do, tell, right? So I can tell you the joy that I get. It's like a freedom, It's like a liberty. I am freed from that. Every morning you must get up and go and pray. Did Buddha pray? No. Because he was always in a state of joy. Ramana Maharishi, no. When he wants, Kali will appear in front of him. What more you want? That's why they say the only thing that can enslave the gods is your bhakti. The greater your bhakti, the greater the shakti. The less your bhakti, the less the shakti. That is why us human beings, us fools, will say, oh, that temple is very powerful. Oh, yes. That one not very powerful. This Ganesha in this temple is extremely powerful, whereas that Ganesha in that temple is useless. Go to this temple. 21 times go around. Fools. Ganesha is Ganesha. Why do you give importance to geography and postcodes? You're missing the whole point. This is the buddhi that Brihaspati is trying to give you. God is everywhere, in everything. What I said to you, Krishna said to Arjuna, isn't it? Aham adischa madhyancha antamevacha. Then why do you worry where he is looked at, how he is looked at, how is he dressed, what material he is made of? No, you are so attached to the form, satguna. How will you translate yourself to the nitguna, formless? I always said to you, use the form to go to the formless. You get stuck in the form, that's it. And you still say anyada sharanam nasti. How? Doesn't add up. So many lessons, isn't it? Why did Krishna take a long time to come? Again, I'm repeating this. I've said this many times. Why did Krishna take a long time to come and Draupadi summoned him in the court of Duryodhana when she was being, derobed? Because she called Krishna from a geographical location. She said, Vrindavanavasa. Krishna had to come from Vrindavan. Then halfway through the journey, she said, Maduravasa, Maduravasa, Maduravasa. He has to go to Madura. From Vrindavan to Madura. Giridharanatha. He had to go and look at a mountain. And Krishna, later on, was alone with Draupadi, consoling her and, telling her what happened, in the court of Duryodhana. He said, I would have come much sooner, Draupadi. The fault is not mine. The fault is yours. Because you put me in Vrindavan first. And I was coming there. And halfway through, you put me in Madura. So I have to come from the source of your destination. Then I was coming from Madura, you say Giridhara Gopala. So I had to go to Giridhar. I have to find a mountain which is close and then come from there. Draupadi, you should have just called out to me, Hridayatin Vasa, Hridayatin Vasa. Instantaneously, I would have materialized before you. This is the same message in this Upanishad. God is everywhere. He's encased in everything you see. Everything you see. You mean to say the trees can shake without the will of God? What did Swami say? Not even a blade of glass, not even a blade of grass will move without my will. Right? That is why even in the Christianity prayer, they say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. On earth as it is in heaven, all of that. In Islam, it says the same thing. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. What does that mean? Nothing works without your blessings, your guide, your will, your determination, your power. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. There's nothing that works without you saying yes first. You see the Buddhist prayer says the same thing. Ek Onkar Satnam Kartha Purak Nirbhav Nirve Kal Murat Ajuni Sebhang Gur Prasad Jap Ad Sach Jugat Sach Hai bhi Sach Nanak Hosi bhi Sach. In what more languages do you need this fact to be told to you? See, the trouble with us is we are like hot iron. Have you seen iron in an ironmonger, in an iron factory? Iron placed in the fire becomes so red that you can see, my God, what brilliance, what tejas is there that the fire is doing to the lifeless iron. Then you take the iron and put it aside. What was so brilliantly vibrating with light becomes dark, becomes black again when it's cooled. So too with our intelligence. And we listen to this kind of satsangs, when we engage with kirtans, when we read, the Gita, Ramacharitra, all this, our mind becomes, our intellect becomes resplendent, just like the iron in the fire becomes bright. Tejas is there. At this level, you can latch on to the highest wisdom, Brahmajnana you can get. Or what happens? Then just like the same iron is cooled and it becomes black again, you latch on back to the worldly. That half an hour, 1 hour of divine work, devotional work is done. Now back to life, back to reality. When you're a child in your mother's womb, the whole world around you is nothing but your mother. Although you're floating in the amniotic fluid, in the same way, you are living in this earth, totally encased in God's presence. Totally encased. Tell me one place where there isn't God. Now, the next theme this talks about is God seen through the eye of wisdom? Or is love enough? Now I've added love to wisdom. Some declare, well, most of people will say, if you don't see, you can't believe. What you see, you don't believe. What you don't see, you can't believe. This is the usual argument for people who are vibrating at the worldly level. The worldly minded will always say this, no see, no belief. But how do you see the highest Atma, which is more subtler than the subtlest, with your gross physical eye? How do you see that? You want to see something subtle, but from a gross perspective? No. If you want to see something so minute, what do you need to get first? Right? From a scientific perspective, what do you need to get? You need to get a microscope, right? Then only you can look in the microscope and see the smallest form of bacteria or whatever you're looking for. Similarly, to see the highest Brahma, you got to get the microscope called the eye of wisdom. Right? Jnanakan. That's why one of the chakras is called Agnya Chakra, the eye. And even in Shiva, if you look at his picturization, there's always one with the third eye. This is the third eye, the eye of wisdom. Jnanakan, Agnya Chakra. And how can you develop this Jnanakan? Unconditional love. Simple. Unconditional love. Right? Love everybody equally. Finish. There's only one caste of humanity. There is only one religion of love. Right? It doesn't matter what religion you propose. It does not matter what religion you call yourself as belonging to. Your blood is of a specific group. Christians will have the same blood. Muslims will have the same blood. Buddhists will have the same blood. Sikhs will have the same blood. Look at the blood. Don't look at the religion. Can you say the Muslim O positive, O negative, A, B, D, all that is different from the Hindu, and the Hindu's one is different from the Christian? No. But in reality, that's what they're saying. So how can you put such a big block of wall before you and say, I want to go to the other side? And you keep building the wall higher and higher, broader and broader. How? Destroy that wall. Show love. Think love. Speak love. Do love. Show that love. Vibrate in that love. Discover that divinity. Then your eye of love will turn into the eye of wisdom that will look through the eye of worldliness, through to the eye that gives you Brahmajnana. Then it's easy, isn't it? The next theme I told you talks about is that it compares, joy and grief, good and bad, vice and virtue, all are products of the mind. Even your deha, So Deha Devolaya, that means your body is the temple of God. Right? If you look at the word Deha, it's taken from the root word Dha, meaning burn, Dha in burn. Right? It implies that which has to be burnt. And that is why we have cremation, right? The Hindus believe in cremation because the very way Deha comes from the word Dha, which means to burn. So the wise man, right, the jnani, I'm talking about the jnani, one who's got that level of Brahmajnana, he has three bodies. And I've spoken about these three bodies, right? Gross, subtle, and causal. So a gross body, subtle body, and causal body, which is to be burnt. What is the meaning of burning this? Well, if you take the material world is the fuel that you must use to burn. Right? The material world is called Adi Bhautika. Right? Fate is called Adi Devika, and your individual soul is called Adi Atmik. So you must use the Adi Bhautika to burn the Adi Devika, so you realize the Adi Atma. These are the three penances of the heart that can dictate to the mind. Then you can go to the level of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Then, once you're at that level, you become Paripuranaha. And at that level of Paripuranaha, you're Nitya, eternal. Right? So, you cannot look at something and say, this is virtue, dharma. This is vice, adharma. Both are products of the mind, isn't it? So, but if you vibrate always at the level of right thinking, right vision, right result, then you will not be thinking, is this good or is this bad? You just do your duty. As long as there is desire, you'll get caught in the web. You know what is the real problem? The real problem is the I. The I is the real shackle. The moment you destroy and dispel the I, everything else becomes. The final theme that this looks at, right, I said to you, is overcoming the three illusions, the triple distinctions, if you like. Overcoming the three illusions. The three obstacles in the path of a seeker of Atma Jnana or Brahma Jnana is the three are your past, your present, and the future. The Jivan Mukta is not worried about these three things. He has gone beyond that. He's gone beyond the past. You can't live the past. You can't live the future. But you can live the present. The way you live the present will determine and discern your future. So where is the difficulty in understanding this? You can't relive your past, it's finished. But the present you can live properly so that your future is well deferred, isn't it? And this is what this Brahmanubava Upanishad is saying. Overcome the triple illusions of past, present, and future. This day is what you should be focused and living on. Because tomorrow may not come. For those who only live on the basis of tomorrow. The beautiful saying in Bhajagovindam, which I covered quite widely, and it's apt for me to just remind you here at this stage what that triple illusion of past, present, and future means. I think it's the fourth verse in Bhajagovindam, which goes, Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam tatvat jivita atisaya chapalam viddhi bhyadi vimanagrastham lokam shokam hatam cha samastham. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam. That means, you see a drop of water on the leaf. Drops of water early morning you see, or when rain, you see this raindrops trembling on a lotus leaf, uncertain as to its next destination. Tatvat jivitam atisaya chapalam. Know that life is like that, it's so uncertain. Vidhi, vyadi, abhimana grastham. The world remains prey to vidhi, vyadhi, abhivana, disease, ego and grief. That is the very character of the world. Lokam, shokam, cha samastam. Okay? It's telling you why you worry. Your past cannot be relived. Past is history. Future is mystery. Present is the gift. So live it. Live each day as it was your last, because blessings can come in a multifarious way, in different ways. You never know when your time is up, right? And I'm going to end with the story of Rama and Lakshmana in the forest, just to tell you, sometimes blessings can come in a way that you least expect. Blessings can come to you in a negative way, but the result will be positive. Who are you to judge? Because your perception is so aligned to either good or bad. Something must be good or something must be bad. Something is joy or something is grief. You don't treat life as an experience. You treat each individual action by giving them a category. You either fall into this category or that category. Friend or foe, good or bad, dark or bright. Everything falls into categorization. Your whole life is a category of categorizations. So once Rama and Lakshmana, during the Vanavasa, they were walking. Night fell. And they could see a small hut at some distance with a small light inside. Probably, a flickering candle that can end its life at any point in time. So they go into this path, and they come to the hut. When they knock on the door, two people are living in that hut. A very old man and his wife, a very old lady. So the lady opens the door, and then she invites them in. And she tells her husband, I don't know who, but they look like, hunters. And then Rama bids them, greetings, and says, my name is Rama, this is my brother Lakshmana. And we are just wondering, and since it's dark, we wanted somewhere to rest. We saw your hut and we are here. If you have any food that you can share with us, that will be great. We will be leaving as soon as the sun rises, because my wife is still alone in the ashram, some distance away. So the wife looks at the husband looks at the wife. You see, when the mind is vibrating at that same level, words are unnecessary. Words are unnecessary. So when you stand in front of the divine, words are unnecessary, because at the mind level, you're communicating. Right? Anyway, the wife looks at the husband and says, we only have that 1 cup of milk that our cow gives us. And that is the milk. You drink half, I drink half, and we have been alive for so long. I have already collected the milk. This all she is saying just by turning to look at the husband like that. And the husband understood every word that was not said through that look of that wife. This is thing of the past, right? It doesn't exist now these days. These days, you look at your wife, you'll get something thrown at you, because you say, what the hell are you looking at, man? 35 years you're married to me, still you're looking like this. Anyway, some of us are lucky. We don't get, we get small objects thrown at us. That is fine. Now, the husband just showed the hand like that, saying, give it to them. What beauty in unspoken language. That is the communication you need to have with God. Because you tell me, what language does not God understand? You look at him with tears, he understands your tears. You look at him and laugh, he understands your laughter. You look at him with your hands clasped, he understands what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do, what you're trying to say, what you don't say, what you feel. And yet, you want to pick the right words to talk to God. How silly can you be? How foolish can you be? When you can just sit back in your chair and communicate with him all the time. No, you choose to fill 27 forms go to the airport, wait, go and do 2 COVID tests, maybe another 5 when you reach there, stay in a hotel, spend your money, and then have a split-second view of him and say, what a darshan I had, man. My God. Tirupati Balaji was splendid. How long were you there? Maybe 10 seconds. Hey, idiot. You can have full darshan sitting in your chair, in your hall, in your room, in your bed. And you chose to do all this for 10 seconds. Whose choice was it? Your choice. So why do you always blame God for your experiences? Tell me one good reason. You choose to do it, you do it, you reap the benefits, you reap the consequences, you experience it, but blame God. How wonderful, right? There is always someone who doesn't disagree with you. So blame it on him. You know, there is an English song I've heard so many times, right? It's called Blame It on the Rain. But we have changed it to blame it on God. Anyway, when the husband says like this, give it to them. Adithi devo babaha. The wife understood his language. She went and she gave Rama and Lakshmana. She says, this is all I have at the moment, but please, it will give us a lot of happiness if you partake it with your brother. So Rama takes it. Rama doesn't take it first. He gives it to Lakshmana and says, you drink. He didn't say, drink half and give it to me. He said, you drink. But you see, Lakshmana knows his brother better than anyone else. You know why? Because the true Lakshmana is Adishesha and the true Rama is Vishnu. Have you ever seen Vishnu without Sesha? So he knows. So Lakshmana drank half and said, that's enough for me. You drink the balance. You drink the rest. Rama drank whatever there was. Thanked them, say, we will just rest outside and then we will go. But Rama, just because before he left the house, he said, where do you get this wonderful, tasty milk from? Then the lady says, it is our Gomata. She is the one who's been sustaining us all this time. Rama says, oh, wow, that's great. And then they sleep outside the hut. And then as the sun rises, he is walking, right? They begin to walk. But before they walk, they wanted to say thank you and goodbye to the man and the woman and the lady, right? So Rama knocks on the door. The lady opens. The husband is standing beside her. And Rama says, thank you very much for your kind hospitality, right? May your cow die. And he goes. Both the husband and wife are shocked. How can someone to whom you've shown such kindness, such compassion, such hospitality, tell you something that is so horrible? Lakshmana was shocked. And this was, running in his thoughts. How can my brother, my brata, who commits no wrong in thoughts, words, or deeds, how can he say this? And he couldn't contain it. After a while, he just said, how could you do that? How could you bless that one thing that was keeping them alive for all this time? That is what keeps them alive. And they gave that to us. And Rama says, exactly. They are fit to go to the feet of the Lord. So long as the cow is there giving them the milk, they will continue to live and suffer. Once the cow dies, the next moment, the Atma gets liberated. It will go to the feet of Brahman. So, saying that may your cow die was not a curse, but indeed a blessing, because the Atma of the man and the woman, the old man and the old woman, was ripe for the next stage of the journey. Learn to see not with your gross eye, but the subtle eye of wisdom. Then you will see things in a different perspective. When you see things in a different perspective, you will see things in different light. And when that light does not change color, that is the stage of realization. That means you have achieved renunciation. And that is Brahmanubava Upanishad. Anyada sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mamaha tasmat karunya bhavena raksha raksha sarveshwaraha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Ameshwara.